So you want to be a cop? You must be crazy. But hey, I've got 7 points here to help you prepare if that's really what you want to do. And that brings me to key point number 1. Do you actually want to go into law enforcement? Do you really want to be a cop? Because it is not an easy career. Not easy at all. Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, it's incredibly challenging. It can also be very rewarding, but we'll go into that in a future episode. First, let's move on to number 2, the applicant requirements. You need to check into what the requirements are for your state or jurisdiction. Is there an educational requirement? Is there an age maximum or minimum? I've heard of age maximums before. Not sure if that's so much a thing anymore, but there is an age minimum. In the state that I reside in, the age minimum is 21 years old. You can't carry a pistol in law enforcement unless you're at least 21 years of age. So you cannot be hired. Other considerations as far as the requirements for an applicant. Are you willing to relocate? Because some agencies, whether it's county, city, or state, will require you to relocate. Maybe you want to be on a highway patrol and they only have openings in certain cities in that area. They may require you to relocate. Or maybe you're looking to join a county, become a sheriff's deputy. Maybe they require you to live within that county. Maybe you have to be within a certain driving distance. These are things you have to look into with whatever agency or department it is that you want to be a part of. Number 3, the entrance exam. They're going to require, most places, an entrance exam before you even get hired. They're going to test your knowledge. For a lot of them, it's a high school equivalency exam, but there are some really good resources out there. Personally, this was years ago. I bought a book, 2 books, I think actually, from Barnes & Noble that had to do with entrance exams and preparing you for such a thing. There are other study resources you can find online. Just give it a Google search and you'll be able to find some study resources for that. Make sure you take advantage of those. A lot of them have practice tests. And for me, it was very similar to the test that I actually took. So it prepared me really well. And then check things like Amazon. Amazon has some good resources as well, some books that you can get to help you prepare for that. Number 4, a PT test. Are you physically ready to go into law enforcement? Are you able to pass whatever PT test your agency of choice does or does not have? Make sure that you know what that PT test is and that you can not only pass it, but that you can excel and that you can absolutely crush it, because none of us wants to work with somebody that we're worried about whether they can provide cover when we need it. You know, if it's a foot chase, are you able to remain in a foot chase so that your partner is not in it by themselves? It's incredibly important, right? So make sure that you're in top physical condition before you even go into that PT test. Some of them are based on age. And so check and see what the requirements are for your age. Make sure that you begin training several months in advance, because you don't want to get there and have the nerves have an effect on you and limit your ability to actually pass that PT test. Next, number 5, you've got the interview process. The interview falls in different steps, different times, depending on the agency or department that you're looking to get hired with. Sometimes the interview is up front. Sometimes there's more than one interview. Sometimes you have a command staff interview that would be with the upper management, and that would be toward the end of the hiring process. But make sure that you're well prepared for that. You can look up a series of common questions that you'll be asked and make sure you're prepared to give the answer that fits you best, one that sells you the best. And make sure you're being 100% honest, because if you're not, they're going to find out. All right. Don't go into these things and think that you can lie your way through it to make yourself look better. They're going to know. They're going to find out. One common practice, and this is one that I've done myself, is to interview myself in front of a mirror. This works really well. And you can actually kind of critique yourself, especially if you're a shy person and you don't want to have somebody else interview you. This one works really well. So find those list of questions like, why do you want to be in law enforcement? What have you done to prepare for this? Those kinds of things. And then answer in front of the mirror, and make sure you keep those times limited to, a certain amount of time per question. I know with a lot of interviews, they're limited to about 50 minutes. That way they plan for about an hour per applicant. And so if it's, say it's 10 questions, You can give yourself 5 minutes a question or whatever the case is. So look for those interview questions online and see if you can answer them very well. Ask somebody else to interview. This one works really well too if you've got the courage to do it. I know a lot of times it's difficult to put yourself out there, but maybe find a loved one, a trusted friend or whatever it is to interview you and to give you honest feedback in that. Make sure you're doing things like practicing good eye contact, good posture. Make sure you're confident yet humble in your answers. And again, to reiterate, above all, make sure you're being honest in those answers that you give. Another portion of this, number 6, there will be a background investigation. Again, to reiterate, honesty is key. These background investigations are incredibly thorough. For a lot of departments and agencies, it may be 6 months or longer before you actually get a job offering from the time you apply. And that's because these backgrounds are extremely thorough. They're going to go through everything. They're going to look at criminal history. They're going to look at financial history. They're going to look at your past living, your living situations, right? If you're renting or if you own. If you rent, they're going to talk to landlords. They're going to talk to neighbors. They're going to talk to roommates. And then they're going to talk to family. They're going to talk to references. They're going to get references from those references and references from those references from those references. This is going to keep on going until they've exhausted all resources and they've exhausted everybody that they think that you might know until they get a clear picture of who you are as a person. So if you have done something in your past that you're not real proud of, be upfront about it. Hopefully it's been a considerable amount of time since that thing happened, but be upfront about it, be honest about it, and then explain how you came out of that on the other side and you're better because of it, or you learned from it. Whatever it is, make sure that you are explaining it and you're explaining the outcome and how you've learned from that, grown from that. All right. Finances. Make sure your finances are in order. Okay. If you are in a ton of debt, if you're in more debt than you can pay for, maybe start working toward paying that off. Work toward getting help with that. Get some financial help. Go to the bank, whatever it is. Figure out how you can make your financial situation better. All right. Because they are going to look at that. And it tells a lot about a person if your finances are a complete wreck, if your relationships are a wreck. Now, there's ways around these things. Maybe something bad happened. You've gone through a streak of some misfortune. I get it. All right. But make sure that you're prepared for those questions when they come up and be completely honest and forthright about it. If you've used any illicit substances in the past, make sure that comes out too. And maybe one state doesn't care so much about it, another state might. Regardless of the law in your state, using certain substances is still federally illegal. So make sure that you're prepared for that question. All right. Every police contact that you've ever had, that's going to come up. Every agency that has had contact with you is going to provide that information. So you need to be prepared to give an answer for that, to explain that. Okay. Okay. Finally, my last point here, and this is not exhaustive, a psych eval. In some states and departments, agencies, some of them do a polygraph, not all of them, but more likely than not, you will have to go through a psych eval, a psychiatric eval. All right. And you're going to do a series of questions. You'll sit down and have to answer several questions. It could be hundreds of questions. They are anywhere from your background to what you think of a certain situation, what you would do in a certain situation. Answer those questions honestly and thoroughly. Make sure you answer everything in that test. And then you'll probably have to go and sit down with a psychologist and have to answer a series of questions. Be ready for that and be honest in that. All right. Sometimes the psychologist is going to ask you some really odd questions. Just answer them honestly. And don't be surprised if it takes a little while, but just answer the questions and be prepared for that. Be prepared for a very long day. But that's part of the process, because nobody wants to work with anybody who shouldn't be wearing a badge. We've seen that in the news. Every time somebody in law enforcement does something that is immoral or just outright wrong, it makes the news because there's an extremely high expectation for those who put on the badge, for those in law enforcement. And we hold each other to a higher degree, as should be the case. We hold our law enforcement to a very high standard. as it should be. So this is not exhaustive. And if you have any more, if you're in law enforcement or you've been through this process and you want to add some more, please add to it. Maybe help somebody who's new to this, somebody who wants to get into law enforcement and doesn't know where to start. And my last bit of advice is, if you think you want to be in law enforcement, but you're not sure, go on a ride along. Get a hold of an agency or a department and arrange a ride along. Arrange to go and ride shotgun with one of these folks on the job to see what they do on a day-to-day basis. Maybe you think you want to do it, but maybe you'll ultimately find out it's not really for you. So check it out. That's the only way you're going to know for sure, is if you hop in a car with somebody and see what they do during a shift. All right. Maybe you should be in law enforcement, but you don't know which way to go. Maybe you don't know if you want to go federally or work for a city or a county. Schedule a lot of ride-alongs. Jump in with somebody from any place that you can think of and see which one is the best fit for you, and then go all in. Don't be surprised if you get a no from 5, 6, 8 different departments or agencies. Don't stop there. If you know that that's where you're supposed to end up, keep applying and keep trying. And if it's meant to be, eventually you'll get picked up. So if you got any more questions, send us an email, leave us a comment. God bless.